Okay, so Louise Hopkins Underwood, she's a very interesting woman, and her family, in getting ready for this exhibit, we said to them, it would be helpful if we had pictures of her in the dresses that we have that we're going to show in the exhibit. Well, we got pictures, and you're going to get treated to them because they will not be in the exhibit because there's just not room for all of them. So here is Louise Underwood in her life from beginning to end. Some pictures of young Louise. There, I think, with a doll on the right. I think she's the child on the right in this picture. I know that one of the reasons that we're videotaping today is so that the family who could not be in the room can have a chance to see it. So if I've made a mistake, I'm sure they'll help me correct that, and I apologize in advance. Some pictures of her with her family. I think that's her there on the left. Then as she grows up, she attended Hockaday School in Dallas. Any of you that know anything about education in Dallas and Miss Hockaday and her school know that it is the top girls' school in Dallas, and it is just where every parent wants to get their child to go if they can afford the tuition because of the connections and the education. So Louise was a debutante, and this picture was in the Dallas Morning News in December 31st of 1939. The text is there on the right, and you really need to hear this. And my husband will laugh hysterically when he hears it on Saturday, but I think you'll hear it and enjoy it too. Unrestrained hilarity was the keynote of the fast-moving presidential dinner party given by host Samuel Pace Johnson immediately before the 26th annual ball. It's one of the debutante balls during the season between Christmas and New Year's when the ladies are home from school. As the Cass Country Kids played the coming out song chosen for each debutante's debut earlier this year at the Idlewild, loud cheers and applause sounded. Here, unofficial Deb, Louise Hopkins, you can see her leaning forward there, rises to, I didn't know what time it was, play because of her particular penchant for being late for dates. That was kind of fun. I never knew that about her. I'm sure that's why I liked her so much. Here she is again, and here she is I think that's one of the earliest pictures of her with her husband and then her fiance, Harris Underwood. At one point, Harris wasn't in town, so she went to the ice show with Edward Marcus, the brother of Stanley Marcus, as in Neiman Marcus, which was probably one of the reasons that many dresses came from Neiman Marcus. And this was her wedding announcement. Miss Louise Longcoat Hopkins, attractive daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Edwin B. Hopkins, became the bride of Mr. Harris Underwood of Lubbock and Athens on October the 11th, probably 1941. Miss Hopkins was extensively entertained prior to her marriage. Love those things, don't you? So her early life was a lot about parties. See her in the back there. I love this picture of this. On the left, it's the background of the Tivoli fountain in Rome. Her daughter was like, oh yeah, they took a trip to Rome. I was like, no, Gwen, that's a painting because it doesn't look like that anymore. It probably didn't look like that then. But what I love about this picture is that Louise is sitting on some man's lap. The life of the party, I think, in lots of places. And there she is with Harris, I think, in the picture on the right. Here she is again. I think I pointed her out. This was taken at the Fountain Lounge in the Roosevelt Hotel in New Orleans and came with its own little special folder from that place. Here she is on board the Queen Mary. And then it's time to settle down in Lubbock. So here she is on the right holding Jane, her firstborn, who has been very instrumental in lots of the things that we've been able to borrow and use for this exhibit. Here she is at Creede, Colorado, with her husband Harris. And here she is with all of her children on the left, and Harris. Now, so Louise is the fourth from the left. The woman on the other side of Harris is Jane, their oldest daughter. And then there is Buster, the twins, and then the youngest child. And we'll talk more about them in a second, like right here, I think. This is from the Lubbock Avalanche Journal in 1959. And the text says, favorite eating area. The patio at the home of Mr. and Mrs. Harris Underwood is the setting for many meals during the summertime. The grill, cabinets, and sink are built against the exterior brick wall. Underwood is chef for preparation of steaks, with the entire family assisting in preparing the meal. Ready for serving from the grill are left to right, Jane, 16, Busty, that's really what they called him, B-U-S-T-Y, they still call him Busty, 13, David and Amy, twins, 6. I think David died, and so I'm not sure all the circumstances. I'm seeing people shaking their heads. That was before I arrived here. But Amy is still alive, as is Mary, who was 2.5 in this picture. Mrs. Underwood, and then Mr. Underwood. Not pictured is a daughter, Gwen, 12, who is at Camp Waldemere, which is where they all went for their summer camp. Mrs. Underwood finds the sink area an excellent place for making flower arrangements. Don't you just love the newspapers from the 50s? They're kind of fun. Jane was very specific about making sure I showed you this picture. The children are playing in the backyard, and on the jungle gym are Louise's dresses hanging out to air, which I thought was kind of a fun thing. It's a better picture there. It must have been a raucous time. Okay, so the first piece we're going to talk about today is her Seal Chapman gown, which is all the way on the right here. It was designed by Seal Chapman, who was a very important designer in the 40s and 50s and into the very beginning of the 60s, and we'll see lots of her designs in a minute. Louise, as you can imagine from the pictures you've seen of her, was not the typical debutante. She wasn't real interested in getting her portrait painted, but her mother insisted, you need to get your portrait painted, and we're going to get you this dress by Seal Chapman from Neiman Marcus. And so she sat for it, and she said later to me, she said, you know, I really had a good time with that artist. I really enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to enjoy it. The girls talked about this being right after the time that Busty was born, so she still looked pretty good after 3 children, I think. Let's talk about Seal Chapman, and then we'll look at the dress more carefully. Okay. So who's Seal Chapman? Well, she was really an important woman's designer. She was one of those American fashion designers who was just at the right age when World War II hit, and we couldn't get designs from Paris any longer, that her career was really put forward because we were relying on American designers then, since we couldn't get the Paris clothes. She really had a distinctive niche with party dresses and party clothes. And for more than a decade, a Chapman dress was synonymous with debutante parties and senior proms. She had quite a life in New York, knew a lot of the theater people. Because she knew the theater people, they started to wear her clothes, and that helped with her popularity. They called her dresses tabletop dresses because if you sat at a tabletop in a nightclub, you still had this great décolleté kind of showing off your features. And so that's one of the reasons that they showed that she was so popular. Here she is. This is the dress that she made for Elizabeth Taylor when she married Nicky Hilton in 1950. And she's also then shown there with Debbie Reynolds. So she had interactions with people in Hollywood, probably because she had interactions with them when they were in New York on stage and then carried on into Hollywood. Here's a beautiful gown that she did, photographed by Horst. Here she is with a mother and daughter working on ensembles, probably for special events. Another picture of Seal. Here she is with her models. She's standing there on the left, and the models are all in her designs in her studio. And a few more Seal Chapman designs. And so, as you know, with Come and See, there's always an overlap. We start over here, and we end up talking about over here. So you're getting a preview of Miss America. Miss America fashion is going to be 30-plus garments worn by women who are Miss America. Everyone from Marion Bergeron, whose cape, which was made for her by the women of Atlantic City, her coronation robe from 1933, will be on exhibit, straight through to Kelly Cash's super suit, swimsuit that she wore to be Miss America in 1987. Shirley Catherine Barrett, Miss Texas, and then Miss America 1975, met me in a bank parking lot to hand over her competition evening gown and swimsuit. So that will be in the exhibit, as will lots of other really interesting things. Unfortunately, this dress will not be in it, but here's a picture from the pageant in 1949. On the far right is Miss Alabama, and there's a little detail of Yolande Bettby, and she wore a Seal Chapman gown in this picture. And there was quite a brouhaha that this was supposed to be on the cover of a magazine at that time. And in fact, here's the ad from right about the same time for probably the same dress. So one of the Miss Americas, actually two of them, competed, in Seal Chapman gowns. Then here is a very important picture of Lee Merriweather. This is the first time a Miss America is shown with their iconic crown that we come to know as the Miss America crown. And this is in the pageant book from 1955. She's featured, and they discuss the dress, which we happen to have downstairs. It has been loaned to us by an anonymous donor that Lee trusted the dress to, saying to that donor, that anonymous lender, well, I'm going to have to pay you for conservation work on it. Well, we've done a lot of conservation work on it because apparently many people wore this dress. Unfortunately, there's no label that says it's by Seal Chapman, but the book in which Lee is featured with it's the pageant program book they do every year, and her pageant program book, she's in this is her picture from that, with that crown, and it says that it's a Seal Chapman dress made of Everglaze fabric. Everglaze was made by Joseph Bancroft and Sons of Delaware, and they were huge sponsors of the pageant, very important sponsors of the pageant, and their fabrics were then made up by major designers for the women who were Miss America as their official wardrobe or for other purposes. And this is one that was done, and it was by Seal Chapman. And here's that dress. We've worked on it. It'll be, when Slim gets done with it, it'll look even better because she's going to pat it out and make it look more like Lee did the day that she wore it. And here is Lee with the person she crowned next, Sharon Ritchie of Colorado. And Lee's wearing that dress. And what's also important about this is this was the first night that Bertha Parks ever sang There She Is, Miss America, 200 Miss America. So this dress is really very iconic. And unfortunately was used for dress-up by these children way too much, I think. But now it's back, and they probably won't do that again. So here is another Everglaze ad with Nancy Fleming from 1961. And on the right is a Seal Chapman gown. So they had major designers do dresses, and so Seal was one that was selected. And then Jacqueline Mayer out of Ohio chose a Seal Chapman gown when she was competing as Miss Ohio and became Miss America in 1963. So there's sort of where Seal kind of goes, lots of different places. So another dress that's up here is by Sybil Connolly, and we're going to show this one. We will go to this one next as soon as I talk about her. Sybil Connolly was, here's Mrs. Underwood wearing it. So here's the second dress that we have, where she actually is wearing the garment that you're seeing here. There she is on the left of your screen at the 1962 Peppermint Stick Golf Tournament. And it was designed by Seal Connolly, who was born in 21 and died in 98. She was a Dublin-based fashion designer who was known for making fashion from Irish fabrics, particularly Irish linen that she pleated very finely. And she was called a national treasure by one of the prime ministers of Ireland. She did a lot of fittings in the royal family. In fact, was there, it says Queen Mary. She worked for a company that did dresses for Queen Mary, was the grandmother of the current queen. And she wasn't doing a lot but holding the pins during fittings, but still she was in the room. And she was really known in the 50s for her work. And, oh, there we go. There we go. One of her most important dresses was the one that Jackie Kennedy wore for her official portrait, which still hangs in the White House. So let's switch now, Scott, from the PowerPoint to the video camera, and Sloane's going to get up, turn it on, and we're going to go look at things on the stage for a minute. Sloane, I want to start by showing them the beautiful embroidery that is on the Seal Chapman gown. And you'll have to forgive us. We, when we pulled the dresses up yesterday, we saw some things we want to fix. So this will be steamed out before it goes on exhibition. But can you show them this wonderful embroidery on this? Okay, now stop and hold. Okay, now go down the side bit. Stop and hold. Good. And then show the décolleté. How it's finished there? Beautiful piece, and the students have enjoyed putting it together. Now show them the Sybil Connolly. This is actually a jacket, careful, over a dress, and with a little bow on it, and it really feels like pleated silk. Silva was known for her pleated linen, but I'm really feeling like this is silk. And then while you're here, show them the Bill Blass, the detail here on the side. This is the mint green is a Bill Blass. And then let's show them the fabric on the Malcolm Star. Show them the collar. And then go down the arm. So. And then show them the ape shredder. And this one is a beautiful brocade ensemble with a dress underneath and these wonderful rhinestone buttons that are closures. There you go. Stop. Okay. Go and have a seat. And we'll show them the other side in a minute. I have so much to show you today that I am kind of rushing to make sure we get through everything, because I'm very conscious of the time. And now that Scott has sat down back there, I can really see the clock, which is great. You're back on the screen for me, thank you. So Mrs. Underwood is pictured here with her mother during an exhibit of her grandmother Hopkins saris. And there's Mother Hopkins in the middle for a birthday party. Louise loved to entertain in long lounge dresses. Unfortunately, we didn't choose any of those for the exhibition because it was a competition. And we could only put in 25, 27 dresses. So you really the dress had to really step forward and be the dress, or it wouldn't be in the exhibit. And the other part of this is that we really wanted to show Louise as a change agent for her community. And although I know she did some change work when she was wearing her lounge long dresses at her parties, and when she was attending formal events, she did a lot of it at meetings. And so we really felt it was more the day wear that we wanted to show you in this exhibition. So they had a really interesting family life. I love this picture. You might say, why is Harris in his bathrobe? Well, it's because the kids had mounted a surprise party for them. And they launched it on them just as Louise and Harris were getting ready to go out to dinner to celebrate their 25th wedding anniversary. So that's why Harris is in his bathrobe. Fortunately, he had a bathrobe on. I guess we should be glad about that. They traveled a great deal. Here they are at Camp Waldemere on the left, and on the right, they're at Stonehenge with the Bobby Lane. So Bobby Lane, some of you know as the big important football player from the University of Texas, but then he also played for the Detroit Lions, was their most important quarterback for years. And Carol Kruger Lane, his wife, was a close friend of Louise's. Carol was a socialite. Her father, Dr. Kruger, was very important here in Lubbock, and they were part of the scene that the Underwoods were in. Louise loved traveling. Here she is with her daughter, Jane, on the left, and then Jane's in the picture on the right as well, when Louise is getting ready to board the train to Houston to go to Europe in the spring of '68. Here she is with Harris, I think in England, but I'm not positive. And there she is in a picture that appeared on February 23rd in 1969, I believe in the Lubbock Avalanche Journal. One of the pieces, right, and here's Louise dancing with her son-in-law, Jack. We have that dress in the museum collection. That's how I was able to date this picture. I knew it was Jack and it was Louise, but I wasn't really sure that he was actually the bridegroom at this event. But we have both her dress, this one that she wore, and as well as the shoes and I think the hat, and also her daughter Jane's wedding dress from that same day. So we do have a lovely encyclopedia downstairs of her things. This piece I wanted to show you, it's in the exhibition. Celia Chapman, for a period of time after she closed her shop, worked for Samuel Winston, who in 1974 designed this green ombre silk and wool ensemble for the firm Roxanne, which was a division of Charles James. So this is sort of another piece that happens with Celia Chapman. We did not bring that up for you to see today because, as you can see, the stage is very crowded, and so we had to pick and choose what we would show you today. The next piece that I want to talk about is that beautiful mint green Bill Blass dress, which has that fun chain going on the right. Bill Blass was widely considered one of the most charismatic and generous men in the profession, and one whose social and business skills mingled so adeptly that he was once described as being able to charm the clothes right onto a woman's back. He was a gentleman of American fashion, and he had a sense of being very American, but very fun and glamorous to be with. He traveled in interesting circles, including here with Henry and Nancy Kissinger in 1987, when Kissinger and Nancy were still very popular and moving in important circles. He was one of those designers who became part of the world of the women who wore his clothes. A few of them did. Jeffrey Bean, who we're going to see in a minute, did as well. Because of the recent book by Anderson Cooper, we have a few references to Gloria Vanderbilt here, and here she is with Bill Blass. He was born in Fort Wayne, loved glamour, and got out as soon as he could to get into New York and other places where he could do his design work. He actually won a design prize sponsored by the Chicago Tribune that then set him on his way. Here he is in his office, and then with Jacqueline Smith a little later. And he served time in the Army. He was part of the camouflage group that inflated tanks to deceive the enemy, the Germans, during World War II. When he came back to New York, he still didn't have his real firm yet. He joined Anne Klein as an assistant, but he was soon dismissed. She said I had good manners, but no talent. No, he multiplied and made that talent, certainly turned into wonderful, wonderful millions of dollars. His designs gradually became recognized, and he actually went to work for a woman named Anna Miller. When Anna Miller retired, her business was merged with that of her brother, Maurice Rentner, which was a well-regarded fashion house in New York City. And he went to work for Maurice Rentner. Eventually, Rentner died in 1960, and that was when Blass got his name on the label to start with. Here are some of the examples of his pieces. And what I thought was kind of interesting, we have this piece by Rangi. Remember what it looks like, because here's a piece from Rentner that's in the costume collection of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, probably designed by Bill Blass. It's kind of fun that we have a piece that was inspired, perhaps, by that. Okay, so, bad picture, sorry about that. But you can see the two-piece silver and brown ensemble by Abe Schrader. It doesn't seem like a name that many people would remember. Here he is. He lived to be over 100, celebrated his 100th birthday at the Plaza Hotel, dancing with Pauline Trégère, and Ed Koch, the former mayor, was there. So he was having a grand old time. Schrader was born in Poland to a well-off family, and he was inducted into the Polish army during World War I, put on the German border, where he felt like he was treated badly because he was Jewish. And he forged papers and got himself released to Germany, an even better place for someone of that heritage, I'm sure. But he came to America and was here in the 1920s, so he got out before the Nazi regime. And he was very instrumental in working with the unions. One of his best friends was the head of the Ladies Garment Workers Union. And so they negotiated a lot of deals that enabled American fashion in the 70s to continue to be strong in this country without shipping things off to other countries. He was very influential at the time, and he was part of, I skipped that. He was part of getting the name Fashion Avenue put on the street name there in New York City. There he is with Mayor John Lindsay. And he became active also with, he was interested in civil rights, and he was interested in workers' rights, which would surprise you that would align him with LBJ. And so he became a great friend of LBJ's, and actually he raised money for his campaign. And I think he advised Lady Bird on some of her choices for the inaugural. He did not make the yellow gown that we all remember that she wore for the inaugural with a beautiful mink trim on the coat. But he advised her at that time, I think. He sold his business in '84 because he was disturbed by the turn of the anti-union sentiment and all of the things being shipped overseas, but he stayed active as an investor and those sorts of things. So here's some of the pictures of his designs. Spare. Notice the length of the skirt in 1975. He was very proud of the fact that they didn't go way up with any of their dresses or way down with any of their dresses, but sort of kept a moderate hem length. Here's some more of their designs featured in ads from places like Lord & Taylor, Jacobson's, Bergdorf Goodman, some other important shops, Bonwood Teller. And here's another of their designs. Very kind of interesting. Look at that wonderful lining that matches the bow tie there and the hat. This is with his son. It's a video, but I don't think I can run that from here. So that gives you a little more contemporary picture of that gentleman. So now,
talking to Mr. Abe Schrader, chairman of Abe Trade Incorporated, and his son, Walt Schrader, who is president of Trade Incorporated. You always have a special woman in mind when you think about an Abe Schrader woman. What would you describe her as?
A very smart lady with money to spend on better clothes.
Sort of a cross-section of American life, a medium to high salary lady.
Yes, in the Abe Schrader division, for sure. At Schrader, we stood for the same kind of clothes we had planned always. When length went way up, we may have in this whole cycle change moved an inch or two. Either way, we've never had that jump going way short, way long. We stand for something, and the end result was that the stores in this difficult period did well with Schrader.
And there you have it from the gentleman's mouth, directly. Thank you, Scott, for helping me do that. So I want to mention the Malcolm star that's on the stage. Louise and her husband did cruise. They cruised with the Lanes. And at one point, Harris decided to take the whole South Plains Cotton Co-op on their annual meeting on a cruise. And here's Louise wearing that Malcolm star that we saw earlier, there that's on the stage. Here she's with Harris and they're having dinner with the ship's captain. Here's the dress. It's a floor-length dress of seafoam green polyester. It's by Malcolm Starr. Here's just the daughters sent me this fun picture of welcome Harris Underwood, president of Southwest Compress Association. He was involved in lots of important business things, and I think her social acumen certainly helped him in the social settings that they were involved in. A dress that didn't make it into the exhibit in our collection is this pink Malcolm Starr. Here, Louise is wearing it at the Assembly Club. It was probably the debut of one of her daughters, either Mary or Amy, I'm not sure which. Didn't make it into the exhibition just because we thought others were stronger, but there she is in it. And then not to be outdone, of course, Susan Perkins from Ohio wore a Malcolm Starr. Here, this is a lavender Malcolm Starr gown that she wore on her way to the title of Miss America 1978. And one of the symbolism pieces there for Susan was the fact that it's a royal purple. You know, sometimes the Miss Americas are able to sort of use the symbols of royal clothing to sort of say, I am a royal, you should crown me kind of thing. And Susan's worked well for her in that dress. Moving on, here's Louise, who seemed to favor a lot of sleeveless sheath dresses. And I think that, let's see, this is not the same dress. I have them mixed up. There's a yellow one that's in the exhibit, which is a culotte, if I'm not mistaken. But here is a teal Trina. Of course, teal Trina sounds like it's a woman designer, right? Well, no, actually, teal Trina is a man. This is a linen shift, and teal Trina was a manufacturer. He was not really a designer, but he hired designers to work for him. And one of the designers that he hired was Jeffrey Bean. This is probably, given the date, a Jeffrey Bean design. And Teal Trina once said that, well, Bean said about working for Trina, he left me alone and made it possible for me to do my own thing. He had a great sense of humor, and I shall ever be indebted to him. Here, I think, is Teal Trina. He joined his father's and his uncle's business, which was Trina Norell, after World War II, and then he bought it out and became Trina, just Teal Trina at that time in the late 50s. Jeffrey Bean was one of the designers. At this time, Trina is really the manufacturer, Bean is the designer, and this is before designers get their names on lots of things. But he was known for discovering young talent for his label, and he once said that over the entrance to his 7th Avenue showroom, it should say school because of all the designers that he sort of trained in the process. But this orange is one of my favorites, and I love the scarf that Mrs. Henry loaned us to go with that. Lest you think the scarf that you see on this, the pearls that you see on the next one, the students have had great fun the past couple days now that we've accessorized everything, going in with thread and stitching the accessories to the mannequin. So, you know, if someone comes to the exhibit and thinks, oh, I'm going to grab those pearls, well, it's going to be a little difficult for them to do that. So Just saying. Just thought you'd like to know some of the how sausage is made here. So here is Louise and Harris on their 33rd wedding anniversary. And as you can see, the dress is on the screen. It was designed by Jeffrey Bean. And she wore it often. She wore it even further into the future. And don't you love what Harris is holding, that great picture of American Gothic there? And in the picture on the right, I'm sure that Louise purchased this dress at Margaret's, and Margaret Hopkins, who had the boutique, which enabled Louise really to dress well, as standing there next to Louise in that picture. When I asked the girls what it was like, her daughters, what it was like going shopping for their clothes with Louise Underwood, they just all they went into hysterics. They were still laughing about it the following weekend because they never went shopping with their mother. Mother sent them to Margaret's. Margaret's is the place that brought the dresses in. They tried them on. If they liked them, then they took them across to the shoe part, to the hat part if it was needed. Margaret would bring back dresses from New York shopping excursions and say, I was thinking of you there, and I think this is what you need to wear for your dead ball, or I think this is what you need to wear for that party that's coming up. And these are the stories that I hear from the women that bought at Margaret's. And they just laughed, and peals of laughter, that we would ever think that they would go shopping for clothes with their mother. No, she just sent us to Margaret. So, those of you that were around in the 60s, Louise totally avoided all those fights about miniskirts. Margaret's handled all that. But then also Margaret, they said, Mother never went shopping. She just went to Margaret's. And everything was there, kind of thing. Louise was in the room when we showed this dress the first time at Come and See, and she remembered that she had worn this same dress to the party for, I'm getting this wrong, is it on there? Yeah, the party for J. Lee Johnson III, his 70th birthday party at the Fort Worth Club. And Sarah Vaughan, whose picture there on the left, was his favorite singer. And of course, she performed in that. And they were great friends with the Johnsons for a long time in their lives. So here's a picture of Jeffrey Bean, who designed the black and pink dress on the stage. Many times the students, even yesterday, one of the students said, oh yeah, the black and pink coat. No, it's not a coat, it's a dress. But easy mistake to make, because I thought it was a coat at first as well. In fact, I think it was Louise who corrected me, because I wasn't really intimate with the dress. But it was designed by Jeffrey Bean. There's a little information about him. Born in 27, died in 2004, was another American fashion designer who was born in this country. He liked simple, comfortable clothing and dressy women's wear. He was a technician who really understood Parisian dressing and dress design, but also made things comfortable for women. We think one of the designs that might have inspired Bean in this dress is the Schiaparelli coat, which was designed as a ski outfit. Isn't it fun to see the comparisons? Maybe, maybe not. Jeffrey Bean also was known for designing Linda Robb's wedding gown. But he was also criticized because it was very stiff. She wore this in 1967, and by this time we were getting those pretty chiffon evening gowns, and this was a rather stiff piece, Princess Line. Here she is with her dad. And so that encouraged Bean to start looking for lighter weight clothing to wear. In case you're wondering, the Robbs are still married. Can't you see the look on his face there? He clearly loved her, it seems like, in that picture at least. Good way to tell. And then the same design was recently used by Temperley of London for their winter 2015 line. This is a coat that was worn by Catherine, the Duchess of Cambridge, but so similar to what we have here in the Louise Underwood dress. The next dress on stage is designed by Adele Simpson, American fashion designer. She actually was the 5th daughter of immigrants from Latvia. It's interesting, as we talk about these fashion designers, the number that have been immigrants in some way or another. I think she was born here, but her parents were the immigrants. At 21, she completed her design curriculum at the Pratt Institute in New York, and she took the place of her older sister, Anna, as the head designer for a firm, a prominent 5th and 7th Avenue fashion designer, and worked for them until she was able to go out on her own. And I'm going through these a little bit quickly because I want to make sure we have time for the other pieces. One of the things that she designed was the yellow ensemble that Lady Birdie's wearing here for Lucy's wedding. I'm sorry, I could not, although I searched, I could not find a picture of this in color, so there you have it. And she also designed the gown that Pat Nixon wore for the 2nd inaugural that Nixon's in 1973, which was right around when Watergate was going on. And he didn't last in the office that year. He was gone before the end of the year. Here, Adele Simpson is with Jack Kelly, who is a Bonwit teller, department store buyer, looking at Mrs. Bruce Edward Arnold's coat, which was a Simpson design, and there's a Simpson ad. And then the next pink piece is by Pauline Trégère. Mrs. Underwood had several pieces by Trégère in her collection that she gave to the museum that were purchased at Margaret's. This is one that we chose to show because one of them we'd already shown in Ladies in Red, and the other one didn't look as good on the mannequin as it probably looked on her. And Pauline Trégère was an important American designer. She said that fashion is what people tell you to wear. Style is what comes from your own inner thing. And Pauline Trégère was based in New York. She had many different relationships with working with lots of different designers over the years and different labels. And she dressed Wallis Simpson, the Duchess of Windsor. She dressed Betty Davis and Lena Horne, in addition to Mrs. Underwood, of course. Here's some of the pieces by Pauline Trégère. And this is our piece that we're showing you in the exhibit. And then we squiggled in one more piece, which is the Oscar de la Renta, which is all the way on your left. And I think this piece that Mrs. Underwood wore was actually Oscar de la Renta, ready to wear. But de la Renta is such an important name. He was born in Santo Domingo. He was born in Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. He began his career in Franco, Spain, where he was sketching for the house of Cristobal Balenciaga. His sketches caught the eye of many women, including the ambassador, his wife, to Spain, who asked him to design her daughter's debutante dress, which appeared on the cover of Life magazine, which was a great way to get launched in the business. I love this story about him. He was hired to be an assistant to the head designer at Lanvin in France. And De La Renta said, he loved me because I spoke Spanish. And he asked if I could cut, drape, and sew. And of course, I said yes. He offered me a little more money than Dior had. Then I said I would start in 2 weeks. Then I went to a fashion school and asked the woman who ran it if she could teach me a year's worth of lessons in 2 weeks. He was one of those great gregarious men who enjoyed being where the action was. Whether it was a gala, the Domino's table, or entertaining the women that he dressed, many of them, 4 of them were first ladies, Hollywood stars, etc. They would come to one of his many homes. Once in a speech, he offered to send 3-way mirrors to certain fashion editors who wore miniskirts. I thought about that sometimes as I walked the halls, watching the students, but, kind of fun. So here's some of his designs. And then one of the most important dresses came to Houston not too long ago, and it was worn by Amal, who, as we all know, Amal Dunn. I don't say her name very well, but it's easier to say Clooney, isn't it? I mean, here she is getting fitted for her wedding dress. And here, you can't come and see without some handsome man on the screen. Here she is in her Oscar de la Renta wedding dress on the day of her wedding to Mr. Clooney in Venice, Italy. And so the piece we have is this suit, which was probably ready to wear out of the Oscar de la Renta line, but still not inexpensive. And here's Louise wearing it. We're having a little discussion about how we're going to accessorize it, because here Louise is in France with her daughters. She's reading a French language newspaper. Her daughters report that she told them that the paper said that day that a Van Gogh painting had sold for more money than any other painting ever before. And they were amazed that she could read French in the newspaper. And here she is with that wonderful red kind of scarf, but it's a wool scarf that she would have worn because it was cold. You can see from the person in the picture to the right of her that it's cold where they're sitting. So there's been the debate, do we show it with that scarf, which really needs the picture to explain what's going on, or do we show it with the pretty silk black and white scarf that we have on the screen, on the platform? I think we're going to go this way, but we'll see. It's still up for debate, I think. She loved to travel, and one of the things she loved was to wear these wonderful Leonard dresses. I think some of you have Leonard dresses or may have seen Leonard dresses. They traveled really well. The one on the left will be in the exhibit, And when she traveled, I love this picture. This is the luggage coming out of London with the lanes. I'm sure they tipped them well, but you know. And then here, Louise is playing around with a pair of shoes that she had worn on all of her European trips. And the back of the picture says, "Don't you love these old shoes I wore all over Europe? 3 trips." This was taken just before our last trip in 1968. We're working on one for April of this year, ever the veteran traveler. So she did buy shoes on her trips. One of her trips to Europe, she was on a cruise, and the Metropolitan Opera had singers that were on the same cruise, and they told her, "You have to go to this place in Rome and get your shoes made because they're just so wonderful and comfortable." So here's one of the pair, and here's the other pair of those shoes that she got on that trip. So let's go to this. Scott, can we go to the camera, please? And we'll start with the dresses, and then we'll come back to the shoes, okay? And Scott, you might need to turn the lights up for the dresses, or maybe not. I don't know. I'm sure the people will weigh in. This is the teal Trina. It actually has pockets that work. Nice straight line down the front, probably of a linen fabric or linen blend, I would guess, because it didn't wrinkle on us. And then here's the Jeffrey Bean. See the wonderful stitching on this? Show the belt. And then let's look at the ruffle of the Adele Simpson. Pretty fabric. I'll turn to your left so you can show them the Pauline Trégère. And yes, those pearls are sewn in place. Don't try to take them off, please. And then show them the Oscar de la Renta. So this is one that Sloane had a little difficulty patting out because it was worn later in Mrs. Underwood's life, and so the mannequin needed to age a bit to make it look good on her. Now let's come back down and look at the shoes. Careful, here you go. I'm going to turn it so you can also see the heel. And the interior has the name from Rome. Oh, there. You can see Rome there. And then the red shoes also have this beautiful embroidery on them. And the heel. And now we're going to wander over and show you the 2 quilts that are here. You have to pull your cord. Yeah, it's like you get to have a microphone with wires on it. Okay, hold on. How about you try that? Does that give you a little more? Okay, that's good enough. You're going to probably have to come up to see some of these, but you can see that all of these little dots have towns on them. And all those little circles, can you just hold still? All of the circles were red at one point because they've been appliqued on with red thread. So it's just red that's been fugitive and faded. And I hope you'll come up and look more carefully at this later. And then show them the 4-point quilt here. This one is such a striking quilt, and it's in a pattern I really didn't know until this one came into us. So you've had a chance to see that before we actually get to talk about it. And then Scott, would you go back? So there are a few more pictures of Mrs. Underwood just to show you. As you can see, the family gave us lots of pictures to show. She was a very family-oriented woman. This is the family Christmas in 1989. Harris is still in that. Oh, I'm sorry, there it is. That one's in 89. Harris is still with them. Here she is with David Henry on the left, with his mother Jane on the right in that picture, and then I think with Gwen's family and her, I think it's 4 generations there in Gwen's family. And then she was not above dressing up. Here she is, the evil queen, with her 4 daughters as the dwarfs, going to an event at Lucca. And here she is with the 4 daughters traveling at the Biltmore in 2011. She was about improving her community, which is why this exhibit is happening. Here she's planting a tree at Tech in 1980, when the family donated 100 trees to Texas Tech University. And then here she is still at the end of her life, protesting about the Godbold Museum, the Godbold building. And the posting is actually her grandson's, who posted, I think, on Twitter. Our badass grandmother is 95 and still fighting for what she loves every single day. We have one unbelievable woman to look up to in so many ways. I didn't post that, he did. I'm just quoting him. Here she is at a kite festival here at the museum in 1986. It was a major kite day, a kite festival that happened for 3 years in this community. Here she is breaking ground. Here she is talking with people about some of the plans that she had for Lubbock and how she could achieve them. She went to lots of meetings around the state. How did you do this here? How did you do this building here? How did you do preservation in your community so that then she could bring it back to Lubbock? Here she is at a Lucca party with their executive director at the time, Karen Wiley, who worked with me in Dallas at the Kennedy assassination site before she came out here and I came out here. Here she is promoting the ballet folklorium. And she got around in that wheelchair in many, many ways. Here she is with then Governor Rick Perry. At this picture in 2002, she was receiving the Dynamic Force Award from the Arts, Cultural, and Entertainment community in Lubbock. Here she is at the Texas Women's Hall of Fame in 2008. Here she is on the cover of Lubbock Magazine. And I think this is from her funeral, her memorial service. Louise broke ground all her life, from the left to the right there. Just sort of a fun remembrance of a woman who made our community better.